My childhood friend gets anxiety attacks whenever he's too far away from me. That was until Ruby, the self-proclaimed savior heroine, showed up in his life. From then on, he started fighting for her, skipping classes for her, even drinking alcohol to protect her. Despite never touching a drop before, my parents wanted me to marry a powerful boss from the Hong Kong underworld. But I tried to jump off a building to threaten them just to stay with my childhood friend. He mocked me. If she really dares to jump, I'll respect her for at least having some guts. Stop acting if you're not tired. I am. The bullet comments said, you silly supporting character. Your fiancé is a yandere villain, the most powerful boss in the whole book. He's madly in love with you. Seeing you like this makes him jealous enough to want to lock you away where no one else can see you, and play with you in different ways every day. Since I enjoy all kinds of play, I moved my foot away from the ledge. I've changed my mind. When is he marrying me? Chapter 1. I was teetering on the edge of the rooftop, my body swaying dangerously. The barrage of bullet comments in front of me was furiously trying to stop me. Don't do anything foolish. There's no benefit for you in jumping. If you jump, the protagonist will completely steal all your luck. Ruby held Sam tightly, biting her lip, tears in her eyes but refusing to let them fall. Julia, come down already. Fine. I'll give Sam back to you. Just don't do anything foolish. You're the young lady. Only you deserve to be with him. I'm just an orphan without anyone. I won't fight you for him. Sam looked at me coldly, his heart aching as he held Ruby's hand even tighter. She's not worth you lowering yourself like this. If she wants to jump, let her jump. Can't you tell? She's pretending. This spoiled young lady who's been pampered all her life, no way she'll really jump. You're the only one kind enough to fall for her act. He looked at me with tired eyes, frowning. Julia, stop acting if you're not tired. I am. The boy who once had eyes only for me now put all his heart into protecting another woman, but he seemed to have forgotten that once. He also begged me desperately not to leave him. Chapter 2. Sam had separation anxiety. He couldn't be more than 1,000 meters away from me. He was my childhood friend, growing up by my side, always protecting me from anyone who tried to bully me. We lived in the same villa neighborhood, and until middle school, he even climbed through my window every day to sleep in the same bed as me. Whether it was going to or from school, he was always by my side, carrying my bag. If I didn't understand my homework, he would teach me with endless patience. Even if we argue sometimes, as soon as I cried, he would immediately bow his head and comfort me. Every New Year, we celebrate together. Sam's New Year's wish was always the same. Sam wants to marry Julia someday. 10 years went by, and that wish never changed. Until that year. It was around the first year of high school. That year, I went abroad for a piano competition. When I returned, Sam stood silently at my door and was the first to rush to me, pulling me into a tight hug. He held me, trembling, and said, Julia, you went too far this time. Never leave me this far again. I stroked the back of his head, feeling sorry for him, and said, okay, I won't go anywhere anymore. Suddenly, a live stream full of bullet comments appeared before me. Sigh. If Sam knew what he'd do to Julia in the future, making her want to jump off a building and allowing everyone to bully her, he'd probably wish he could kill his present self. The comment disappeared as quickly as it came, along with the entire live stream. Back then, I didn't realize the seriousness of it. I just thought I was seeing things. Until the beginning of sophomore year, when the new transfer student arrived. Chapter 3. Her name was Ruby. She was the new transfer student, a poor one. When she finished introducing herself and brushed past Sam, I caught a glint of awe in his dazed eyes. Ruby was like the heroine of a high school romance drama, a gust of wind that completely unsettled Sam's heart. She sat at the back of the classroom by the window, like a delicate yet resilient white flower. From that moment on, I felt Sam's gaze drift away from me. It was around this time that the live stream reappeared. Wow, the heroine of the savior story is finally here. She's beautiful. The male lead can't take his eyes off her. She truly deserves to be the heroine. But doesn't anyone feel bad for Sam's childhood sweetheart? I guess a childhood bond will never beat someone new and exciting. But these rare comments of sympathy were drowned out by the flood of messages about the heroine's looks. After that, Ruby slowly began taking over the place I held in Sam's heart. I tried to keep Sam away from her, so on the first day of school, I clung to him, saying, "We have to go home together today." For the first time, Sam smiled as he looked at my pouty face and said, "Okay." But on that very day, some guys from the other class came to trouble Ruby, shouting that they'd make her leave the school. In a critical moment, Sam stepped in front of Ruby, daring anyone to try and harm her. "As long as I'm here, let's see who dares to touch her." From then on, the one who walked home with Sam every day was Ruby. The next day, Ruby threw away the stomach-soothing porridge I had made for my childhood sweetheart, replacing it with tea she brewed herself. The third day, she was right there beside Sam when his claustrophobia flared up. The fourth day, I watched helplessly as they grew closer and closer. Finally, one day, I clung to Sam, saying my stomach hurt and I wanted him to go home with me. He raised his eyelids lazily and looked at me. "Julia, listen to me. Ruby needs me more than you do." Later, I found out that Ruby's father was a gambling addict, who had scammed his relatives and friends out of their money. The guy who troubled Ruby on the first day of school was Lucas. His mother's life-saving money had been swindled by Ruby's father. Around the beginning of summer break, Lucas cornered Ruby in an alley. Sam fought like a madman to protect her. That was the first time I saw that kind of fierce desperation from Sam. I cried while running to get security. I ran so fast that I fell, losing a shoe. The security guards came, and Lucas's gang fled. I wanted to check on Sam's injuries, but he pushed me away and instead carefully checked Ruby for any wounds. "Are you okay?" He completely forgot I was standing right next to him. In my rush earlier, I hadn't picked up my favorite shoe, and my knees were scraped, bleeding. I was spoiled since childhood and couldn't help crying when I felt wronged. But seeing Ruby in Sam's arms, sobbing before me, I suddenly couldn't shed a single tear. Maybe deep down, I knew that my tears no longer mattered to Sam. Later, they went to the same university. After graduation, Ruby became his secretary at his company. Ruby had a mild heart condition. At the dinner, Sam, who never drank on her behalf. When his stomach pain flared up, I spent time preparing a nutritious meal for him in the kitchen. That nutritious meal was fed, spoon by spoon, into Ruby's mouth by Sam. The thing that was hardest for me to accept was that my parents seemed to slowly start liking Ruby too. Ruby rushed my father to the hospital when he suddenly had a heart attack. Even though he had never had anything like that before, Ruby was invited over as a guest by my parents. My mother personally combed Ruby's hair. It felt like no matter how hard I tried, everything that belonged to me was destined to be taken by the heroine. My love, my special place, everything was being taken away by Ruby. Little by little, later on, my parents arranged a marriage for me without my consent. It is said that he is an extremely ruthless big boss from Hong Kong City. I looked at Sam for help. Sam just paused briefly, then casually flipped through a book and said indifferently, "You're stubborn and unruly. It's good for someone to keep you in check." To resist the arranged marriage, I stood defiantly on the rooftop. I didn't expect that even when I stood there teetering on the edge, Sam's eyes showed no hint of emotion. There was a time when, even if I just scraped my skin, he would apologize profusely, blaming himself for not protecting me well. In my daze, I felt my body slowly leaning forward. The comments woke me up. Sigh. This is where Julia, heartbroken, lost her balance and fell down. She didn't die but ended up paralyzed from the waist down. She thought jumping would make Sam regret it. But what happened? He blamed himself for a few days, had a relapse of his anxiety, but soon got over it with the female lead comforting him. Their affection for each other even increased by 10% due to this ordeal. By the way, the female lead stayed by Julia's parents' side, comforting them, and they were so moved that they even wanted to adopt her and give her a home. The female lead agreed. The story ends with Julia lying paralyzed in bed, shedding a tear, while her parents and childhood friend travel the world with the female lead, saying that her presence brings them joy and happiness. Suddenly, I felt despair. Does no one in this world love me? Is it just because I'm not the female lead? A comment suddenly grabbed all my attention. Supporting character. You're so clueless. Your arranged marriage partner is the yandere villain. the most powerful boss in this book. He is madly in love with you. When he finds out you're jumping off a building for another man, he gets so jealous that he wants to lock you up where no one can see you, changing positions with you every day. Chapter 4. I was stunned, thinking I was seeing things, but more comments followed quickly. Yes, he's been secretly in love with the supporting character for many years. When she was paralyzed, he took care of her personally and never missed a day. The supporting character can't move her legs and needs help bathing. He bathes her, but she keeps trying to hide. Accidentally, she touches a place she shouldn't, and he gets aroused and takes her right in the bathtub. He has all kinds of ways, and because her legs can't move, she can't escape even when she's overwhelmed and nearly faints. She can only cry, biting his collarbone, and tearfully begging him to put her down. Yes, yes. The author even wrote an extra for them. Their story alone could be a whole spicy novel. These comments made my cheeks flush. To be honest, I often hid under the covers reading spicy novels. I immediately did a turtle retreat on the rooftop. I didn't want to jump anymore. People around were still trying to convince Sam. Why don't you try to persuade her to come down? She always listens to you. Yeah, she likes you so much. If you just wave at her, she'll come down. Sam was indifferent. He knew that Julia was just putting on a show for him. She wouldn't really jump. If she was unwilling, she could just say so properly, and he would find a way to have the elders cancel the marriage. But he couldn't indulge her like this every time she was being willful. It wouldn't be fair to Ruby. He had to do this, to temper her temper. He looked up and said, "So many people are watching. Can you stop acting out? Come down already. Do you want to embarrass your parents completely? I'll find a way to cancel the marriage. But let me make it clear, even without this marriage, I've always seen you as a sister. You should not have any improper thoughts about me." Just then, I suddenly jumped down from the rooftop. Then, hopping over to my parents, I said, "I've changed my mind. I want to go through with the marriage. When is he going to marry me?" Sam was stunned, his eyes growing cold. "Julia, what kind of tantrum are you throwing now?" I didn't bother to answer him. I had figured it out. Jumping off a building for a man who favored an outsider wasn't worth it. I repeated my request. "I want to get married." I tugged at my mother's sleeve, swaying back and forth like I used to when I was little. "I want to get married. Please arrange for me to meet him soon." My mother was stunned for a moment. Then tears started flowing as she hugged me tightly. "Silly child. You almost scared me to death just now." Ruby watched the scene, and her expression instantly turned unpleasant. I raised my eyes and looked at her. "Ruby, what's wrong? You look so upset. Are you unhappy because I didn't jump?" Everyone's gaze immediately fell on Ruby. Her expression froze for a second but quickly turned aggrieved. "How could that be? You misunderstood me. I was just worried you might really jump." "It scared me." She blinked, tears welling up as she clutched Sam's sleeve. "Julia, why do you always have such hostility towards me? Is it just because Sam likes me and not you? If that's the case, I'll leave alone tomorrow, as long as it makes you happy." Sam's eyes grew colder, as he held Ruby protectively. "Julia, apologize. In the past, seeing him protect her like this would have made me very sad." I looked at Ruby. "Don't misunderstand. I'm about to get married. How could I still have any lingering feelings for him? I don't like him anymore." I looked at Sam, and said each word seriously. "Sam, from now on, I won't bother you anymore." Sam's gaze stalled for a moment. Then, he slowly revealed a mocking smile. "All right, Julia, you've learned something this time. Changing your tactics. Huh, you better not regret it." Ruby leaned against him. "Sam, my heart hurts a little. Let's go home." Ruby's health was never great. Whenever she said her heart hurt, Sam would forget everything else and focus all his attention on her. But this time, Sam seemed distracted. It took him a while to snap out of it. "All right, let's go." After all, in no time, Julia would be back to clinging to him as if nothing had happened. That's how it always was. She was like a clingy plaster, impossible to get rid of. There was no way she would give up so easily. She was probably just trying to play hard to get, like in those romance novels. Chapter 5. Kevin had returned to the mainland. Rumor had it he was the most powerful villain in the book, belonging to the top aristocratic family of the Hong Kong circle, not to mention Julia's declining family. Even Sam's prestigious family in Shanghai couldn't compare. It was probably to discuss matters of the arranged marriage with me. To meet him, I dressed up carefully. When I arrived in the living room, I found he was already there. The man sitting on the sofa had striking features, deep contours, broad shoulders, and long legs. He wore a fitted black shirt, and his lean waist looked very powerful. At this moment, his eyes were slightly downcast as he was engrossed in reading a newspaper. Curious, I didn't disturb him and carefully moved closer to take a peek. Julia, in defiance of the arranged marriage, resorted to threatening to jump off a building to force Master Sam to break up with his girlfriend and date her. I was directly stunned into silence. Are these media outlets even polite? Besides, I never forced him to break up. Originally, I had planned to keep the rooftop incident a secret from Kevin, but now it seemed impossible to hide it. Thinking about Kevin's ruthless methods in the business world, always taking revenge, and being able to decide the fate of others' companies at will, my actions were simply an insult to him. I immediately felt intimidated. Let me explain. Kevin put down the newspaper. Not angry at all. I understand. Miss Julia has no emotional foundation with me. It was my oversight that led to this situation. I was a bit surprised. Kevin's demeanor didn't match the madness described by the comments. He was calm and composed, the kind that comes from experience in the world of power and fame. It seemed different from what I imagined. The comments couldn't hold back. Funny. He's pretending again. Clearly, he's jealous as hell. He flew overnight just to see Julia after a meeting, and as soon as he landed, he saw this newspaper. The sky fell in for him, and he sulked for an entire day. Seeing that comment, for some reason, a subtle warmth surged in my heart. Looking at the man in front of me again, I suddenly found him a lot cuter. Kevin lifted his eyes, his gaze landing directly on me as he spoke gently. Regarding this matter, I have a solution. Before the engagement, I hope Miss Julia can move into my riverside villa for a while tomorrow to cultivate some emotional connection with me. How about it? Seeing my hesitant expression, he spoke in a reassuring tone. Miss Julia need not worry. Before marriage, I won't do anything inappropriate. The comments instantly exploded. If you trust him, you must be crazy. He's lying. In the book, he also said he'd absolutely respect her before marriage, never cross any boundaries. But in reality, he crossed all the boundaries. I cleared my throat and agreed to his plan. All right, I'll move in tomorrow. Oh, by the way, Mr. Kevin, since this is our first meeting, I prepared a small gift for you. I did my homework. Kevin likes antiques, so I specifically bought an antique pocket watch to give to him, hoping to increase his favorability. But as soon as I spoke, Kevin's expression instantly turned strange. You said, first meeting? I blinked, not understanding why he was so surprised. Yeah, first meeting. Why? The back of Kevin's hand tensed as if he was struggling to restrain his emotions. Did you forget? When you were little, I was recovering at your house. I even held you. And also, I was even more confused. I had no idea about any of this. I asked tentatively, really? A long silence. Kevin's smile turned dangerous. Brooking no argument. Forget it. I don't think we need to wait until tomorrow. Miss Julia, please move in today. His tone was chilling. There are some things we clearly need time to remember. Slowly. Chapter 6. That night, I moved into Kevin's villa. I had to say, Kevin truly lived up to the reputation of a top aristocratic family. Even his temporary villa was much more spacious and grand than my old family estate. My bedroom was twice as big as before. Very dangerous. In the words of the comments, when it comes to rolling around in bed, there's not even enough time to escape before being dragged back. Lying in bed, I was utterly lost. Why was Kevin so angry when I said it was our first meeting? The comments whispered in front of my eyes. The supporting character is so dumb. When Kevin was 7 years old, he got into a car accident, injured his eyes, and was sent to your house to recuperate. The two families were close. Kevin's family didn't have the time or energy to care for him, so they left him temporarily at Julia's house. Back then, the supporting character was only 3 years old, a little clingy child, always pestering him to carry her, calling him big brother. Otherwise, who did she think sent those mysterious Christmas gifts that never failed to arrive for 20 years? Did she really think Santa Claus existed? I looked at those comments, wrapped myself in a blanket, and groggily drifted into a dream. In the dream, I saw myself stumble, after having struggled to chase away Lucas and his gang for Sam, while Ruby sobbed in his arms. I was left aside, like an outsider. I had always been a crybaby, but at that moment, I forgot to shed a single tear. But that night, I did something very reckless. I rebelled. I ran off to a bar by myself to get drunk. When I was utterly wasted, a few thugs grabbed my arm, trying to drag me to a private room. A man stepped in to protect me, coldly uttering a single word, "Scram." The thugs fled in disarray. I don't remember how I got home, but after that, Ruby's father, who had been on the run for fraud, was caught, and the news was exposed by the media. Lucas's mother's illness also received timely treatment. Ruby's reputation at school began to deteriorate, but Sam still protected her. Later, on the day Sam confessed to Ruby, I had a fever and stumbled alone to the street corner. A car sped towards me, and someone pulled me back into a warm, solid chest. "Silly girl, how far do you want to go to make me worry about you?" The man pantsed, as if extremely anxious. I wasn't scared of nearly being hit by the car. Instead, it felt like I had finally found someone I could cry to, and I suddenly burst into tears. I don't even know what's wrong with me, but it hurts so much. Why does nobody need me anymore? Why? Dad likes her, Mom likes her, and Sam likes her too. I sobbed, hiccuping as I cried. Sam is an idiot. I don't want him anymore. I don't want to like him ever again. The man was silent for a long time, gently coaxing me. Then, "How about you like me instead?" Out of nowhere, I blinked and said, "Okay." I don't remember how I got home that day. I only remembered that when I woke up in the morning, there was a ring on the ring finger of my left hand. A ring on the left ring finger signifies being engaged or deeply in love. I thought I had bought it on a whim while sick and feverish at some mall and didn't think much of it. I tossed it casually into my jewelry box. Kevin's voice overlapped with that of the man in my dream. I suddenly woke up from sleep, hair sticking up in disarray, and sank into deep thought. We clearly had so much history, there was even a token of our feelings, yet I remembered nothing. It was like I was under a spell, unable to remember anyone, unable to see anyone, unable to leave any trace in my heart except for Sam. He had been looking forward to our reunion with all his heart. But today, I said to him, "Hello, nice to meet you. Am I kind of a jerk?" Chapter 7. Early the next morning, following the butler's reminder, I went to Kevin's study. I gently opened the door. Kevin was sitting at the desk, leaning back in his chair, his fingers lightly rubbing the pocket watch I had given him yesterday. The ticking sound was steady, like his heartbeat. Seeing me, he lifted his gaze. "Did you rest well last night?" I replied, "Quite well." I hesitated for a moment, then said apologetically, "Sorry. I think I remember something now. Yesterday really wasn't our first meeting." A faint, almost imperceptible smile crossed Kevin's lips. He closed the pocket watch and put it in his chest pocket. "No matter. Let's forget about the past. After all, from now on, I'll make sure you remember me very well." His gaze on me was scorching and intense. I couldn't help but shrink back for a moment. There are many ways to leave a lasting impression. Perhaps it's through thoughtful, constant companionship, or maybe through a powerful impact that leaves one breathless. Chapter 8. Living with Kevin was somewhat different from what I imagined. He was restrained and polite, never doing anything inappropriate to me, but his care for me was indeed meticulous. In fact, it was even more detailed than my parents. I don't like drinking water every morning when I wake up. There are 3 beautiful glasses filled with water on the dining table, along with a note reminding me to finish them before he comes home. I wanted to learn braiding from a video by a blogger, but because I'm clumsy, I couldn't get it right. Kevin watched the video once and got it. I sat nervously in front of the mirror as he combed my hair, strands slipping through his fingers. It tickled. He styled me beautifully, like a little princess. Kevin would lean over to look at me in the mirror, as if admiring a piece of art. He said, "Julia, you are beautiful. I'm a renowned pianist in my field. And every night, I practice in the music room." He had a music room specially set up for me in the villa. When I practiced, he would stay by my side either listening to the music or reading some complicated book, but he was always there. With him, I felt like I was being treated with complete dedication, but I was surprised. So far, he seemed to be a very gentlemanly person. Nothing like the comments said, "a yandere psycho." I even began to doubt the authenticity of those comments. Until today, when I came to his study, according to the comments, he had a secret room filled with hidden secrets about me. Following the comments' guidance, I turned a book on the shelf, a mechanism activated, and a hidden room behind the bookshelf opened. Driven by curiosity, I couldn't resist the temptation and walked in. The sight before me made my eyes widen. The secret room had walls covered entirely with candid photos of me from various angles. I was stunned. The comments were actually true. I instinctively stepped back, trying to escape. A slender, well-defined hand covered my mouth. "Shoo, don't speak," he sighed. "What a pity. You found it by accident. I should have hidden it deeper. How could I almost forget that when you were little? You were very clever. At 3 years old, you could find the candies I intentionally hid." I wanted to speak, but his hand on my lips prevented any sound from escaping. I looked at him with pleading eyes, hoping he'd let me speak, but Kevin didn't want to. "Julia, I know you're afraid of me, but I don't want to hear you say you hate me. Be good. Take a bath, and then get a good night's sleep, as if nothing happened today. All right?" Chapter 9. Kevin carried me into the bathroom. My mouth was still covered, and I couldn't speak. I was now pretty certain that Kevin was indeed the yandere villain. Tonight, he was different from his usual self, but why wouldn't he just let me finish speaking? If only he'd give me a chance to talk. I would immediately tell him that I don't hate him. In the bathtub, the warm water soaked into my body. Suddenly, I remembered that if I had followed the original plot and jumped, leaving me paralyzed, every bath would have been Kevin holding me, unable to move. Our first time would have been in the bathtub. Kevin slowly approached me, his dark eyes hiding emotions I couldn't read. "I never told you. That day, when you went up to the rooftop to jump to reject our arranged marriage, I was very angry. So angry that I wanted to hide you, to put you somewhere no one could see you. But I couldn't bear it. I couldn't bear to see you sad. But you made a mistake, so I need to give you a little punishment, right? Julia, don't be afraid of me, because you're the only one I care about in this world." The rest of my memory was a blur. My legs hung over the edge of the bathtub, the water rippling. I felt like I was being thrown into the sea, rising and falling with Kevin's movements. We became one. To avoid falling, I could only cling tightly to Kevin's neck, my tears falling into the bathtub. When I was carried back to the bed, my legs were weak. The thing blocking my mouth was gone. I reached out and grabbed him. "Don't go. Kevin, I'm not afraid of you, and I don't hate you. Why won't you let me finish speaking?" He froze, standing there, his eyes looking at me, glistening. Before he could respond, I continued. "I've made up my mind a long time ago. I want to marry you. I should have figured it out sooner." His response was a passionate, urgent kiss. He panted, holding my hand against his chest. His eyes filled with unfathomable love. "I wish I could give you my heart. I don't know how to give you more." That night, we fell onto the bed, entangled with each other. I kissed him, accidentally reigniting his desire. That night, he wore me out until I was begging for mercy. When I woke up in the morning, there was a ring on my left ring finger. He stroked my head and said to me, "Now that you're wearing it, you can't take it off." I nodded and softly said okay. After living together for a month, Kevin came with me to visit my mother. Honestly, I was a bit reluctant. When I was in college, Sam confessed to Ruby. After that, My parents grew closer to Ruby, so I became more and more uncomfortable, frequently arguing with them and threatening to run away from home. But that only gave Ruby an opportunity. Every time I slammed the door and ran away, Ruby would come visit my parents, comforting them, saying that she already saw them as her own parents. However, since my last rooftop incident, my parents clearly cared about me more, contacting me often. When we got home, my mom warmly received Kevin and me. After dinner, she pulled me onto the sofa for a chat. As we talked, she brought up Ruby. Mom said to me, Ruby hinted that Sam's mother thinks her background is unworthy, and she wants me to take her in as an adopted daughter. I thought I didn't care anymore, but it turns out anything related to Ruby still sets me off instantly. My fingers clenched, my whole body trembling. Suddenly, Kevin squeezed my hand. His hand was warm, comforting. He looked at me with a gentle yet firm gaze, as if injecting a sense of strength into my restless soul. I took a deep breath, and my emotions slowly calmed down. Then Kevin lifted his eyes slightly. Auntie, perhaps you'd like to hear Julia's thoughts on this. Only then did my mom notice my reddened eyes. She hurriedly said, I was careless. Of course. We need to hear what my dear Julia thinks. I'll listen to you, sweetheart. I curled my fingers and slowly voiced my thoughts over all these years. Even though Ruby indeed sent my dad to the hospital in time back then, we've done more than enough for her all these years. Her college tuition and living expenses were covered by our family. She never lacked anything to eat or wear. So why does she still want to take my mom and dad away from me? I also get jealous. I feel hurt, and I don't want to feel this way. That's why I ran away. I was stubborn. I resisted. I didn't want my parents, who belonged to me alone, to become someone else's. Mom, I don't like Ruby, not because Sam likes her, but because from the very first time I saw her, I just felt unhappy. Mom, I don't want you to get too close to Ruby. I've cried so many times because of her. After so many years, I finally spoke out all those emotions that had been buried deep inside. I awaited my mother's judgment, but instead, she touched my head and let out a long sigh. Julia, you really have grown up. I'll listen to you on this. From now on, I'll slowly distance myself from her. The comments were amused. Finally, the mother-daughter knot is untied. But honestly, I can't believe that even though the supporting character didn't jump, the female lead still tried to push herself into their lives, even offering herself to be adopted. How shameless is that? Yeah, in the original plot, it was Julia's family who brought it up. The female lead pretended to refuse at first but eventually accepted, gaining the affection meant for the supporting character while also earning a good reputation. Now, she just outright grabbed it. But did you guys notice? The villain's luck is seriously powerful. Being by his side has slowly turned Julia's fortune around. After that, Kevin had a long private conversation with my parents in the study. I didn't know what Kevin said to them, but when they came out, they hugged me tightly, crying and telling me that I was their only daughter, and no one could take away their love for me. Kevin stood behind them, looking at me tenderly. After that, my parents truly distanced themselves from Ruby. My father got a new phone number without telling Ruby. My mom cut off all contact, went abroad on vacation, and Ruby couldn't find her even if she wanted to. Because of this, I realized I might love Kevin even more. I knew that he was the only one who had always stood firmly by my side. When we got home, I couldn't resist pressing my lips to his. Couldn't even wait to turn on the lights. My coat fell to the floor as Kevin picked me up. From the floor to the sofa, then to the bed, our clothes were left behind along the way. Finally, my back pressed against the floor-to-ceiling window. He kissed every part of me with his eyes closed. I couldn't take it anymore, my nails scratching light red marks on his back. Stop for a bit. I can't take it. He chuckled. You started the fire. Now you need to put it out. It was only in the middle of the night that I finally managed to extinguish his fire. After that, Kevin got a taste and kept at it every night. Our stamina wasn't even on the same level, and each time, he pushed me to the point of begging for mercy. The room was too big, which wasn't good. Every time I tried to run from the bed, before I even reached the doorknob, he would pull me back. After another night of him wearing me out, the next morning, My phone rang. Kevin was holding me in his arms, and I stretched my arm, covered in kiss marks, to reach for the phone on the bedside table. It was Sam's friend, Diego. Diego was one of Sam's close friends and usually treated me well. I hesitated for a moment but answered. Diego's anxious voice came through the phone. Julia, long time no see. You know what? Sam's in the hospital with a stomach issue. Before, you were always the one taking care of his stomach problems. Could you make some vegetable porridge and bring it to the hospital? He always feels much better after eating it. I looked at Kevin and said, Diego, I'm engaged to Kevin now. Please don't tell me about Sam anymore. It's unfair to my fiancé. Without waiting for Diego to say anything else, I hung up. On the other end, Sam was stunned when he saw that I had hung up on Diego. When Diego said he was going to call me, Sam called to stop him but didn't actually make a move to intervene. He couldn't explain his feelings clearly, but for some reason, he wanted me to know, wanted to see me worry about him. In the past, whenever I knew he had stomach issues, no matter how late or tired I was, I'd always make some vegetable porridge for him and bring it to his side, refusing to leave even if he tried to make me. But now, without even asking, I hung up. Sam couldn't describe what he felt. His heart felt stifled, like a heavy stone was pressing down on it. Ruby grabbed Sam's hand, acting cute. Sam, it's okay. I'll make porridge for you. My cooking is way better than Julia's. Sam's gaze never once landed on her. He nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. Chapter 10. Kevin left in the morning without having breakfast. Before leaving, he kissed my forehead and said he was busy and wouldn't be back that night, asking me to wait for him tomorrow. According to Kevin's secretary, Kevin had an eye checkup and then a flight to Hong Kong to handle business. I guessed he wouldn't have time to eat, so I decided to cook a few of my specialty dishes to bring to the hospital where he was having his checkup. I hadn't cooked in a while, so I was a bit out of practice and ended up cutting myself a few times. I asked the butler to help me treat the cuts a bit, didn't pay much attention, and then took the thermal container to the hospital. Meanwhile, in the hospital room, Diego entered Sam's private ward to visit him. He cheerfully said to Sam, I just saw Julia outside the hospital. She had a thermal container with her, definitely for you. I told you, as soon as she knew you were sick, she wouldn't be able to help but come see you. For some reason, at that moment, the restlessness that had been bothering Sam all day suddenly calmed down. The corners of his lips lifted slightly, but his tone remained indifferent. Nosy. Diego casually poured himself a glass of water. But I saw her getting lost in the hospital. She's probably lost her way. Want me to go out and bring her in? The corners of Sam's lips twitched, and he let out a cold snort. Silly girl. Getting lost would serve her right. But despite saying that, he still got out of bed to go find me. Ruby stopped him. Sam, you're not feeling well. Let me go find Julia instead. She pursed her lips, holding on to Sam's sleeve, looking a bit aggrieved. But, Sam, you shouldn't show too much concern for her, or else she'll start clinging to you again. Sam was in a good mood right now and spoke to Ruby gently. You're overthinking it. I only see her as a sister. If she keeps clinging to me, I'll just tell her to get lost. At that moment, I was staring at the vast hospital, lost in thought. Where was the eye department again? I walked into the long hallway of the hospital and sent Kevin a message. I made lunch and stopped by the hospital where you're having your checkup to bring it to you. But I think I'm lost. Kevin quickly replied, stay where you are. Send me your location. I'll come find you. Then Kevin called me. A smile spread across my face. One I didn't even notice myself. As soon as I answered the call, an unwelcome figure suddenly appeared in front of me. Ruby reached out to me. All right. You can hand it over here. Just give me the container. I paused, tightly guarding the thermal container in my hands. What do you mean? Are you seriously trying to snatch my container in broad daylight? Ruby's face showed a hint of disdain. Isn't that porridge for Sam? Just give it to me. But you're really pathetic. You said you wouldn't cling to him, and yet here you are, not even a few days later, chasing after him again. What? Can't live without a man? After all, he's my boyfriend. If you keep getting too close to him, it won't be good for your reputation, will it? Everyone knows by now, Miss Julia. So improper. Always hanging around someone else's boyfriend. You don't really think you can get close to him again by bringing him porridge, do you? Have you forgotten? Every time you made something for him before, it either got thrown away or was fed to me. People should know their place. Don't go out of your way to be annoying, little sister. She looked at me arrogantly. Come on, give me the thermal container, but you'd better know that as soon as I say I don't like it, Sam will dump the porridge you made, little by little, right in front of me. After saying that, she tried to snatch the thermal container from my arms without my consent, worried Kevin might hear me curse. I hung up the call. When Ruby reached out to grab the container, I snapped. What's wrong with you? Is this your stuff for you to just take? I used all my strength to push her away, tightly guarding the thermal container in my arms. I had spent the entire morning preparing this meal, even cut myself accidentally. There was no way I'd let her have it. Ruby didn't expect me to fight back. Her face turned dark. You're insane. Sam's voice came from behind her. What's going on? Why aren't you back yet? Ruby immediately changed her expression, her eyes welling up, and she looked down with a pitiful expression. I don't know. Julia pushed me when she saw me. I don't even know why. Sam frowned. Julia, you're being too much. Apologize now. His gaze was stern as he looked at me. I've told you. I'm not interested in you. And I don't like you clinging to me. Don't keep doing things that embarrass yourself. Who said she's embarrassing herself? Kevin's hand rested on my shoulder. He stood in front of me, his gaze dangerous. When did my fiancé need you to teach her a lesson? At the word fiancé, Sam's eyes twitched. His face darkened. Is that so? But it seems your fiancé doesn't love you all that much, since she made porridge herself and came to see me in the hospital. Kevin let out a cold laugh. Young Master Sam, you sure are full of yourself. But before we get into that, how about having your girlfriend apologize to my fiancé? He opened his phone and played the call recording. Ruby's voice came through clearly. Isn't that porridge for Sam? Just give it to me. You said you wouldn't cling to him, and yet here you are, not even a few days later, chasing after him again. What? Can't live without a man? After all, he's my boyfriend. If you keep getting too close to him, it won't be good for your reputation, will it? Everyone knows it by now. Miss Julia is improper, always clinging to someone else's boyfriend. You don't really think you can get close to him again by bringing porridge, do you? Have you forgotten that everything you made for him before was either thrown away or fed to me? People should know their place. Don't go out of your way to be annoying, little sister. I never expected Kevin to record that conversation. Ruby clearly didn't expect it either. Her face immediately turned pale. Sam, let me explain. Sam looked at Ruby scrutinizingly, as if he was seeing her for the first time. In his memory, Ruby had always been gentle, someone who needed protecting. She had never been like this, harsh, aggressive. Since high school, Julia had always picked on Ruby just because she was a poor student, easy to bully. But how could Ruby speak to Julia like that? I linked my arm with Kevin's. Forget it. Let's not waste time with them. You still have to catch a flight this afternoon. Here, take the food I made for you. Kevin noticed the cut on my finger and frowned. How did you get hurt? I hid my hand behind my back. It's nothing. The butler already took care of it. It doesn't hurt at all. Oh, and the thermal container has 3 layers. The top is sweet and sour ribs. The second is steamed sea bass. And the third is shrimp and egg custard. Make sure you finish everything before getting on the plane. All right? Kevin pressed his lips together, gently patting my head with affection. All right, I will. But don't do this kind of thing anymore. If you get hurt, it hurts me too. My heart felt warm, and I held on to Kevin, ready to leave. Wait a moment. Sam grabbed my wrist. The sunlight was dazzling, and he noticed the engagement ring on my left ring finger, his strength vanishing immediately. I let go of his hand. Young Master Sam, please respect yourself. In that moment, I realized that my heart would no longer waver because of him. I knew that I was free. Once outside the hospital, I suddenly stood on tiptoe and kissed Kevin, holding his face. I said, Kevin, Let's get married next month. Chapter 11. Planning a wedding is an exhausting thing, but Kevin took care of everything, handling all the troublesome details. All I needed to do was choose my favorite wedding dress, invitations, and the venue. On the night I was trying on wedding dresses, Sam called me. His voice was slurred with drunkenness, sounding lonely, fragile. Julia, I think I'm drunk. I can't stand up. I stayed silent for a moment. Do you need me to call a cab for you? No, Julia. Just stay with me like this, quietly talking for a while, okay? I said nothing. Sam's tone was filled with unwillingness. You used to go so far as to threaten your parents with jumping off a building just to avoid marrying him. Are you with him now just to make me angry? I admit it. You succeeded. I regret it. Julia, I was wrong. What would it take for you to forgive me? I spoke slowly. Sam, you're drunk. I can't help you. Go find Ruby. We broke up. I'm getting married. We spoke at the same time. Sam was stunned. The zipper on my wedding dress was hard to pull up, and my entire back was left exposed. Feeling chilly, Kevin leaned in, his hand resting on my shoulder as he pulled the zipper up, his rough fingertips brushing against my skin. I couldn't help it. I turned my head and kissed his chin. Kevin lazily leaned his chin towards me, his gaze sweeping over my call screen, his tone slightly provocative. Darling, you've been talking to him for a long time. There are still plenty of dresses you haven't tried on. Suddenly, it went quiet on Sam's end. I cleared my throat softly. The past is in the past. I apologize for always clinging to you before, but now, I truly have no feelings for you anymore. Let's leave it at that. Sam, please don't contact me again. Otherwise, my fiancé will get jealous. I hung up the phone. I didn't know what happened after that. Later, Diego told me that night, Sam had an anxiety attack, almost smashing the entire bar. When the bar staff dragged him out by his collar, Sam's mouth was bleeding from being hit, but he kept laughing and didn't resist. Luckily, the compensation was enough, and the bar owner didn't make things too difficult for him. The night before the wedding, my mother called to check on me. She said Ruby went to see my parents after breaking up with Sam, accusing me of seducing her boyfriend, which caused Sam to break up with her. I held my breath. What did you think? My mother let out a cold snort. Of course. We threw her out. I won't allow anyone to insult my daughter like that. Tears welled up in my eyes. Mom, thank you for believing in me. And please trust me. I have no feelings left for Sam. I just want to spend the rest of my life with Kevin. It was also because of this incident that my parents saw Ruby's true selfish nature and decided to cut off any support for her from then on. I heard Ruby's father got out of prison. This time, there was no Sam to protect her. It wasn't just my imagination. I could feel that the fortune that originally belonged to me was slowly returning. Everything was getting back on track. On the day of the wedding, I looked out into the audience, and Sam was standing there among the crowd. After we took our vows, he walked away, lost and broken. On social media, he wrote that he wished his 16-year-old self could kill who he had become today. When he was 16, he hadn't met Ruby yet. Back then, there were still endless possibilities for him and me. But now, he had said hurtful things to me, done things that couldn't be undone, and allowed another woman to step all over me. I almost jumped off a building for him, almost lost everything I had because of him. Now, my heart and soul belong fully to Kevin, and he is completely loyal to me. From now on, my future will no longer have someone named Sam in it. But Kevin and I, our future has no limits. Perhaps I was just a side character in Ruby's youth, but I am the main character of my own story.